All right, so this is from Activity 2.2, the how to draw a one-point perspective sketch using the box method. So if you happen to miss class or need a little extra help with this, what I'm going to do here is demonstrate how to create a single-point perspective sketch using the box method in this video, and then in the next video I'll show you how to use the construction method. So the first thing that I'm going to do, according to the PowerPoint, is to create a horizon with a vanishing point. Now, I don't literally need to draw out a horizon line on here, but you can. We just need, because I've already got this line drawn, I'm just going to pick a vanishing point up here in my corner. And the vanishing point can be placed anywhere. It could be in the center, it could be on the left side or on the right side, but I'm going to pick this right side just so I can follow along with the PowerPoint better. So the first thing that we do is we sketch the front face of a box that represents the overall size of the object. So we'll use a 2-to-1 ratio block to square. So this block right here is 1, 2, 3 wide. So I'm going to use 6 grid lines across, and then 1, 2 high, so I'm going to go 4 grid lines high. I'm going to pick a spot that gives me plenty of room to work because I am going to be working up. So let's just pick a spot over here sufficiently far away from my vanishing point that I don't have some odd perspective. The closer you get to the vanishing point, kind of the weirder these look. So I'm going to start over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep in mind that this is just a glass box, so I'm using a construction line as light as I can, but still have it so that you can see it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. And I'm just creating, again, a flat face for my glass box to build from. At this point, all of my vertical and horizontal lines are going to be parallel to each other, and I'm going to have those to be parallel with my grid lines here. So you know, nothing else is different than what I did with my oblique perspective sketches. Here's where the difference comes in now. In an oblique sketch, you picked an angle. We used 45 degrees, so I would draw going from corner to corner here. And all of those would be parallel with each other. But with a point perspective sketch, I don't do that. I use my vanishing point here as my reference for all of my depth lines. So I'm going to line my ruler up with my vanishing point, and I'm going to go to this corner right here, and I'm going to lightly draw a construction line like that. And you can see that is where my depth line is. And so these depth lines here are not going to be parallel, they're going to be convergent lines, and they're going to converge at the vanishing point. And that'll create that optical illusion of space. That's how that picture of a road that I showed in the PowerPoint earlier shows you how that road appears to kind of disappear into a single point or a vanishing point. So here's my shape of my box in here. So you see now the only thing I need to do now is to identify where that back part of the line is. So let's catch up with the PowerPoint. I got a little ahead of it. So I have my flat face. Next, so that's again all construction lines. And now I'm going to draw construction lines going to the vanishing point, and I'm going to call those vanishing point construction lines. And now I'm caught up. So what I need to do now is I'm going to estimate this depth. This is where it gets a little tricky because on a single point perspective sketch, it just really depends on how close you are to your vanishing point as to how deep this is going to end up going. The farther away you are, then the deeper you can go. So we're going to sketch that visible back edge of the box to represent the overall size of the object. And so we're going to have to estimate. So they took it back, and mine's almost in the same spot. So I'm going to go back 1 and about 1/4 depth. And see, again, that back line is parallel to that grid line there. So we're going to make sure that we do that. So, and we're just going to follow along where that construction line is. And we're just going to connect those two construction lines, the vanishing point construction lines with the third. Is perfect. So you see how that is? And then where these two intersect, I'm going to do a vertical line, again parallel with my verticals, going straight down. And that's going to go, and I'm going to stop where I get to the edge of this other construction line. So now you can see a rectangular prism shape. Okay, so the next thing to do is construct anything that touches the outside edge of this box. And so that's this square, and this square here. All right, and the front face, we're going to keep things to proportion. So 1, 2, and then 1, 2 up, because that was our box, where each cube is 2 by 2 by 2. So I'm going to go 2 up and 2 over. And these should be construction lines, but I know they're going to be object lines, so I could draw them as dark as I want at this point. On the top, it's a little trickier. I'm going to pick that halfway point between here and here. So halfway between these two is right about here. Again, it's an estimate. And I'm going to draw that, again, horizontally parallel like that. And this one here should be about 1/3 of the way over, because this one is 1, 2, 3 blocks. So 1, 2, 3. Don't let that optical illusion fool you. So right about here. And that's going to be a vanishing point line. So that's because it's a depth line. I'm going to go make sure I'm lined up with my vanishing point. And I'm going to draw it lightly for right now, like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to start at my midpoint, which is right about here. And I'm going to go up. Again, this is just a construction line. And then I'm going to go up about halfway, because this represents 2 blocks, right? So 1, 2, 3, and a little bit. So 1 and right about there. And I'm going to take that one, and that's about the same. This goes up a little bit. 1, 2, 3. So right about there. So let's check and see how that lines up. Here's my vanishing point. There's my points are lined up. That's exactly where I wanted it. So again, this is a depth line, so we use a vanishing point line. Okay, got a lot of construction lines on here, and it starts to get confusing at this point. So let's go ahead and darken those in, the ones we know are object lines. And so those are those 3 squares that I just drew. Yes, I know the ones on top aren't really square shaped, but they represent squares. I know you want to get in there and freehand some of these things to save you time. Honestly, your sketches will look a lot better if you use a straight edge. So there's the 3 shapes. Next thing I'm going to do is start to use some construction lines to delineate the remaining corners and edges of the box, so of the shape. So let's start with this back line here. Remember, this is a depth line, so I'm going to use a vanishing point line. And then I need another one here and here. So let's do that. Again, just take those corner pieces right here. I'm sorry, down here, because this is where my object is, and draw it over to this vanishing point. go ahead and put these vertical lines and this vertical and horizontal line for this back. So I'm going to take this one. This is where it gets a little tricky. Looks like I did it well. So I'm going to take from this one and go straight down until it intersects that back construction line. Now if I did everything right, I should be able to draw a horizontal line from this point to this point. Well, it looks pretty good till they connect each other. So that's these two here on the PowerPoint, here and here. So let's go ahead and take this one. It goes all the way down to this bottom construction line, because that's this line right here all the way down. So from here, we're going to take it all the way down to that other vanishing point construction line right there. And then from this box here, in. These guys should line up with each other. I'm off just a little bit. Like that. And that's okay to fudge. Make your line a little thicker if you need to. And then this back one goes down until it hits this construction line here. So this construction line right here, I'm going to go from here straight down. And then from there over to this one right here. I look at my PowerPoint, I should go from this point to this point. And if you're off a little bit, like it's not perfect, but it's pretty close, we're going to use this intersection point to define that line. All right, at this point now it's just a question of tracing over the lines and darkening them all in. So let's go ahead and do that. You can kind of see how this object takes shape now. So go back and go corner to corner. And then up. And this one goes back all the way. See my shape. This is why doing those construction lines lightly is so important. If you do them too dark, then they really take away from your overall sketch and it gets confusing. Like this line here is too dark. What'll help is when you start shading them in though. So if you shade these lines in, I'm going to do a cheat here by taking and lining my ruler up so I don't go over the edge. Once I start shading these things in, it will give it some depth and it helps cover up those little mistakes. And as this pencil gets dull, I could use it to make thicker lines. And see, you can see where I overshot this a little bit, so I just color that in and it kind of makes it blend in and go away. So keep the dull, using the dull side of this pencil when you shade, and that'll give you that nice even shading look. And here we can cross hatch your shading, because I want this to be a little darker, so I'm going to go front, top to back, and then side to side. This one's going to get shaded the same way, darker. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to shade all of this for you. But again, this back one here, this face here gets shaded dark. And I'll finish this up, so I'll have it for my journal. Again, since these are darker, I can cross hatch them, meaning go in opposite directions. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and continue shading this. And you can see now with the shading in there, it kind of hides those construction lines a little bit. And then on these side view here, this line here and here are going to be lighter. So I'm really barely holding my pencil now. And I'm just going to go side to side. And it doesn't matter if I overlap because those other guys are dark. So just see how by holding it lightly and just going in one direction, I can get a nice color that's a little bit lighter than this one. Do the same thing over here, and it doesn't matter if I go over this edge here because this is dark. I'm going to keep the tops white. And that way I can create really effectively 3 different shades. So this part's going to stay white. This one's going to be light here. And then this one stays white as well. Okay, so that gives you an idea what your box should look like. And I always thought that came out pretty good, so I'm happy with that. All right, this one's in the archives. And we'll pick this up